I love the Joe Flacco is elite quarterback conversation. I think it's fantastic. But we are going to switch gears and bring on our next guest, somebody who is absolutely elite in every sense of the word. In every sense of the word. I know he's a Husky fan, but then again, we can give him a pass. From SeattleSonicsMIA.com, Commando Dave joins us on the program. Good morning, Dave.
Hey, what's up, you guys? Good to be on with you again.
Good morning. How's everything treating you?
Pretty good. How about you, Steve? What you know, Bo?
I know a lot more than I did last week, Dave.
You know the Seahawks aren't in the playoffs any longer?
I do know that. In fact, I actually heard Steve scream in agony from Texas. So, oh yeah, it was pretty bad, Dave, and I think I think what some of the fears that we had last week when we were on the show talking about this game really did come to fruition. The lack of a pass rush, even though that I don't think that was the only reason why the Seahawks lost that game, but I think it was the focal point to start off any type of conversation. Was the fact that look at who was on the defensive front for that last play of the game.
Right.
You had your number one draft pick on the field, but then you had a UFLer and you had two guys that really that probably shouldn't have been on the field at that point in time, which I guess can show you that that there was a fundamental lack of depth that the Seahawks have, and especially when you add in the loss of Chris Clemens, you can understand why the Seahawks had multiple problems trying to get pressure on Matt Ryan last week.
Yeah, no question about that. That was a glaring part of that game, without a doubt. Bruce Irvin just was oversized, overmatched, did not use his quickness and, the spin moves and the under the arm moves that you see guys using to, put and keep the pressure on. There's a couple of times that I think had he, made some type of maneuver, he would have been right there in Matt Ryan's face, maybe not to make a sack, but just affect the throw. And you really, we saw how that was just a big part of that game last week. No question about that, Steve.
Yeah, and I think that for the most part, it was a difference between night and day. And again, the Seahawks defense came out flat. They ended up spotting the Atlanta Falcons 20 points. And I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are and how good your team is. You can't be on this type of stage. You can't be spotting teams that type of point differential and expect to win many ball games. Now, all credit to the Seahawks in the second half. They really did a fantastic job defensively, allowing the rest of the world to almost pull off probably would be one of the greatest NFL comeback stories. Next to that Bills Oilers game back from '91. But I will say that. With the sum of all parts, you can't do anything but be proud of the Seahawks this season. Really, they exceeded my expectations. I think before the season, I had them at 8, maybe 9 win tops, and sure enough, they're a 7-win team, and they got their first road playoff victory since 1983. So, me personally, Dave, I think the Seahawks really deserve a round of applause for the season that they had.
Yeah, no question about that, Steve. But one thing, right quick, let me respectfully disagree with you on. Last week we were going into this game saying that the Seahawks could not repeat what they did out in Washington by spotting the opponent 14 points, and then as a result they wound up spotting the Atlanta Falcons 20 points. Now you say, you can't do that, but in fact the Seattle Seahawks did do that.
Yeah, they did.
And, Russell Wilson.
I know what you're saying. I just think it was kind of funny. I think 14 points, that margin, a 2-touchdown margin, isn't really that vast to overcome. And especially when they came out firing in the first quarter, able to to do some of the things in the last 3. This was something that the offense was flat for the first 2. And and again, all credit to the Seahawks offense, even though they were able to come back and take a 1-point lead. I just think that that margin. Had Pete ended up kicking the field goal instead of going for it on 4th and 1, it wouldn't, that field goal wouldn't have mattered. You know what I mean?
Well, your point's well taken that when you give up 20 points and a half, the game, there's a lot of ground to make up, no question about it. And in a situation like the field goal, should Coach Carroll have taken it or not? I was just sitting there listening to the voice of John Madden, because there's been hundreds of times in games just like that, on the road, get a little bit of a slow start, had some bad breaks go against you. John Madden said over 100 times, you got to get something on the board right here. And if they kick that field goal, I think Pete Carroll, I love Coach Carroll, and the knock on him coming in, of course, you guys, was, all that college rah-rah, this and that, and too much USC. He went USC Trojans right there, I'm sorry. Because, you kick the field goal right there, you settle your team down, you alter the game, quite frankly, because now, you've got something on the board, you've had some breaks go against you, you should be feeling good about yourself, you're going in at the half 13-3. It's impossible to go in at the half 20-0 at that point because you've put the points on the board, now you're kicking off, playing defense, and 4 plays later you're not down 20-0, and so and then you're right about Russell Wilson, man. We saw this from Russell Wilson from Game 1, Week 1 against the Arizona Cardinals, where he just has that ability to bring the Seahawks offense back, to be in every single game and win, in miraculous fashion. Some of them, and he won that game the other day. There's no question about that. It's just that the Seattle Seahawks defense could not hold the win.
Well,
in 12 seconds. In 12 seconds. Let me just add that.
You're right. I will say that you're absolutely right. That Pete Carroll really did go all USC in that situation. And there was some crazy stat that, at that point in time, in that 4th and 1 situation, the Seahawks had been 7 for 7 in converting that exact same situation, which was the fullback to Michael Robinson. Mm-hmm. And the issue about this is, when you get this deep in the playoffs, teams know what your tendencies are.
Right.
Teams understand that teams know how to scout opponents at a high level when it comes to the playoffs. And what amazed me was the fact that Pete Carroll didn't learn from his mistakes just from the week prior. And in that same situation, down 14-0, the Seahawks had the ball. They get down to the field goal situation, and instead of trying to conjure up some type of motivation, they ended up taking the 3 points, which was the correct play, and they allowed their defense to play their way back into the ball game. Just that little 3 points,
right?
Just enough to chip away at the Atlanta momentum. And really just kind of recreate their own momentum, and they didn't do that. And because of that, you're absolutely right. 4 plays later, they scored 20-0, and instead of going into the half 13-3, all of a sudden now you're putting too much pressure on Russell Wilson to try to bring the team back.
Right.
I really think that in itself, with that play right there, really defined that game. And I think that's when the game was lost, right there in the first half, and the decision not to give your team just a little bit of confidence to play their way back into the ball game.
Well, you can't really say the game was won or was lost there, Steve. I mean, they came back and had a 1-point lead, fought all the way back, and with 31 seconds left in the game. I mean, your point is well taken that it definitely changes the game because you come out, and as we saw this season, the Seahawks were just unbelievable at making halftime adjustments and playing, as Pete Carroll said, 4 quarters. And, you come out 13-3, and you're going to get the ball, and it's a different game at that point, granted. But to the Seahawks' credit of, never saying die, and that does, I'll give back to Coach Carroll on the USC rah-rah Trojan deal. That's where that comes from. You are never out of any game. You can win any game. And again, from week 1, we saw many games that they came back and won. Of course, some got away from them, but just a tremendous comeback on Russell Wilson's part. And again, man, it's just a shame. There's no reason to come back from 27-7 with 17 minutes left in that game if you're not going to go ahead and win it. And defense just, ironically, for the 12th man, could not make a play a football play, in the words of the old Seahawks coach Chuck Knox, in 12 seconds, period.
Well, and I think we've put a final bookend to this chapter of the 2012 Seattle Seahawks. And, we're going to we're most likely going to have more conversations as the road goes down, about how the Seahawks need to improve, especially on defense, maybe get another pass rusher, receiver, just some of the things that we're going to be doing in the offseason. But, Dave, there's another story in Seattle that is making headlines, and I'm not talking about Husky hoops, although they have been playing quite well at the plate. It is, everybody wants to know, Dave. Everybody wants to know what is going on with the return of the Seattle Supersonics. And over the last week now, Dave, we've heard different twists to this story. But there was news broke. I think about a little over a week ago from the daughter of Michael Jordan's agent that the deal between Chris Hansen and company to buy the Sacramento Kings had been finalized. There was a handshake agreement.
Right.
Over this last week, there's been different twists and turns. Kevin Johnson, the mayor of Sacramento, has been trying to get some. If you use his influential power, try to get some of the powers that be down there in the Northern California area to really step up and try to keep the team in Sacramento.
Right.
But then again, we hear these reports from Yahoo, guys like David Aldrich and Gene Wood actually saying that really, the Maloof really don't want to sell to a guy that's going to try to keep the team in Sacramento. He wants to sell the Hansons, to that group. And basically, it sounds like this thing is pretty much finalized. We're just waiting for the official announcement. But it looks like, on the surface, Dave, that the Sacramento Kings will be relocated to Seattle to start the 2013-14 NBA season in Key Arena as the Seattle Supersonics. So I guess the first question, because it's relevant, you and I both know how the Blues act and operate.
Right.
Both look at those guys as sketchy. Your thoughts on this whole Sacramento Kings to the Seattle area, your thoughts on just this entire process over the last week?
Well, first of all, the blogosphere and the way that social media has just changed everything. You can hear a little whisper of something and put out a tweet or a Facebook post, and that little deal can just blow up into what they call viral. I call it just unnecessarily on fire in this situation. And of course, like you said, man, it just unleashed a whole slew of speculation. Let me go back to a conversation that you and I had a few weeks ago when on that one article about the Maloofs and how they were adamant about holding on to the Kings based on a situation where they had owned the Houston Rockets down there. And see, the thing is, Steve, as you found out, and it was funny because I had mentioned that article to you, and I said, based on that, I just don't know what the Maloofs, I don't see them selling the team. And then after you read it, then you put it out on your page, and you pretty much had that same feeling because we see the two Maloof brothers, but there's power behind the throne that those guys have really nothing to do. And from the number of family members that are involved behind the scenes, that's where all these different reports keep changing hands one day to the other. And so with Kevin the mayor coming out, Kevin Johnson coming out and still fighting tooth and nail, you really don't know how that thing is going to affect the whole negotiation, given the fact that the Maloofs are fighting as much as Kevin Johnson to keep a team in Sacramento. The Maloofs are trying to keep a team in their hands and in their family.
Yeah. Here's the interesting thing about this, and here's why I think there's a lot of credibility to the story. Because number one, guys like Gene Wojnarowski of Yahoo, David Aldridge, and Rick Duke, or some of the official guys that came out on some of these credible sites,
right.
like Yahoo and ESPN and some of these guys, they have credibility. They're not the best writers in the business for nothing. They have credible sources to a point where I don't think that they would have even spoke on this unless they knew something about it. Getting some type of information from either side, whether it's the Blue camp or whether it's the Hanson Bomber camp. I don't think that they put. I don't think they post anything without having some type of source that's involved in this situation anonymously. The other thing is, some of the things that we're not hearing from Chris Hansen. We're not hearing any denials. All we're hearing is, at this point, we're not commenting. And it's not just from the Hansen side; it's also from the Maloof side as well too, which makes me think that they are indeed negotiating, or they have something finalized and they're waiting just to make it official. Maybe they're waiting for waiting to hear back from the league for them to make the decision.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this thing has more than just wheels. I think there's a lot of credibility towards this to a point where, I don't trust the Maloofs in this situation because they've walked away from in the 11th hour from deal, I think not once but twice.
Right.
So you can't necessarily trust them. But then again, it seems like that money has talked, and in this situation where the Maloofs need it, Hanson's more than willing to pay a little bit more than the number that was first initially put out there.
No, I couldn't agree more, and there's no question there's a deal, on the table. But of course we're talking about the difference between a deal on the table and a deal on the table with all the appropriate signatures on it, i.e. a done deal. And so, to your point about all the guys reporting on it, your point is well taken, but keep in mind these are the same guys that were reporting about a year or so ago that the Maloofs that broke down crying that they had an arena deal. So I don't think David Aldridge and Adrian and all those other guys weren't reporting that. It's this is the Maloofs, man. You never know until you do know, and even when you do think you never know. These guys had said they had a deal done. The city said that they had pushed a deal where they're going to get $50 million in parking revenue as a result of doing a deal, a 50-year deal or something like that. This thing's been playing out with all kind of different twists and turns, all the way through. Now, we always thought that, the final destination of those wild roads would be Seattle, and it just might be. But again, until it's, as you said, a done deal, it sounded like a done deal that day, remember? How it sounded with the reports coming out, and how it sounded on the radio. It sounded like it was imminent. And, here we are approximately a week later, still not knowing any more than we knew last week when we thought we knew everything then.
Here's my trepidation, Dave, and I wonder if you have any of these as well, too. The reason why I believe the Maloofs pulled out of that arena deal a year ago was because the upfront money wasn't suitable for them. I think that was the biggest issue. They had to pay out something like $70-some-odd million in order to get this deal done. But yet, I think the upfront money that was coming back wasn't suitable for them. It's now come out that they're trying to get back into liquor distribution business, some of these other things, and they need, the only thing that they have that can give them that type of cash flow would be the Sacramento Kings as their only asset.
Right.
And what's interesting about this is, here's my trepidation, that if the NBA actually allows some of these other big wigs to match the Hansen offer, and they get into a bidding war for the highest price. And you have to understand the Kings are only valued at $300 million.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of paying the Maloofs $500 million, $200 million over what they're actually valued at almost seems a little Clay Bennett Howard Schultz like.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of getting into a bidding war has me a little taken aback, because the last thing I really want Hansen and Ballmer to do is get into a bidding war for a product that isn't worth the price. If the bid gets up to $600 million, me personally, I think they should walk away.
No, that's a good point, but to that point, keep in mind that the commissioner is like Dorothy in the Wicked Witch's castle with the sand in the hourglass trickling down, because this guy now has a time limit, a little bit over a year, that he's going to retire, and he's kind of painted himself, I think, in both corners, because on the one hand, Commissioner Stern has bent over backwards a couple of 3 or 4 times for the Sacramento Kings to keep them there. He's done it again with the mayor by getting an extension to come up with this new proposal and a new set of buyers. And the same end, he's painted himself into the Seattle situation by saying that one of the things he wants to accomplish as commissioner before he leaves is get the team back in Seattle. So your point is excellent, but the other factors that play into it is the commissioner's record on how badly he's been entrenched in the situation there in Sacramento to ensure the Kings remain juxtaposition with his wanting to roll out on a positive note and having a team there in Seattle.
So here's the $1 million question, Dave, and I know that you got to run and get back to your busy schedule. But March 1st is the deadline. There have been made exceptions that maybe these things can be extended. We know that Hanson and company have had that conference call with the Board of Governors in the relocation meeting to outline the details of it. That has come out. March 1st is the deadline. Do we have an official announcement before then? And will the Sacramento Kings be playing in Seattle as the Seattle Supersonics for the 2013-14 season?
I don't think so. I think based on what I just mentioned as far as the commissioner extending Kevin Johnson the opportunity to bring to the table this new buyers group, I think that is in opposition with that March 1st date, isn't it, Steve?
It definitely could. It really definitely could.
That's the way I see it.
I think it just depends.
If that part of it,
that's my trepidation. That's my trepidation. Is that this slows down the wheels, it slows the beat down, and it gives the move something else to think about.
now if Stern had gone cold-blooded, like Rick James did back in the day, then he could have just ruled and say, hey, giving you every opportunity, and this thing is in play, with Seattle. And if he was really leaning towards his legacy as commissioner being restored with the situation there, with the Seattle Supersonics, then it seemed like, he would have went ahead and played his hand that way, but he didn't.
Yeah, he certainly did, and allowing other people to try to match, it easily pushes up against that March 1st deadline. So, Dave, I do want to thank you for stopping by, and we'll get you on in the near future as these things unfold. And I do want to thank you for stopping by.
Man, you're welcome. Always good being on the show with Steve and Bo, you guys. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a good afternoon, bud.
Okay, guys.